Have you ever seen something that once you've seen it, it changes the trajectory of your life? Those were the numbers that changed the trajectory of my life. Those numbers are going to help us build cities with a lot less infrastructure and a lot more natural area. From building cities like this to building cities like that. Over the last 20 years, I've had a design practice here in New York that practiced projects in very different scales. We broke the record of the most expensive residential ever sold in the UAE. We created the very first underground cruise ship terminal in Istanbul, just debuted last year. Our company has been involved with all kinds of projects ranging from clients like Toomey, Guggenheim, America's Cup, Louis Vuitton, Bentley, all before we started this movement. Supernature Labs is the movement that I've been focusing on over the last 5 years. My practice has been known to draw on inspiration from nature. And at some point, I realized a pattern that was repeating itself under the microscope and under the telescope, and I was fascinated by this pattern. And I wonder, is the shape of the cells can be an inspiration for us? It's more stable, it's more efficient in so many different ways. But for the last 1,500 years, we've been building cities with squares. 90 degrees have always been the most efficient and the cheapest way to build, but that's not true anymore. With the technology that we have today, that's simply not the case. So what if we learn from nature and we actually design cities like nature does? We put together an amazing team of supporters, an amazing amount of research over the last 5 years, and we realized something incredible. We have the ability to reduce road and road infrastructure by more than half, maintain the same amount of density, and reduce and increase the amount of natural area by more than 1/4 of the total land. Here is the same example just shown in 3D. Examples from City of Manhattan, the same exact massing that you see on the left is the exact same massing that you see on the right, but in fact, in each center of each community, you have nature. And you can see how much infrastructure gets reduced. Mobility is much faster, much safer, simply because we don't have any more four-ways intersections, which have 16 collision points. We only have 3 ways that have only 3 collision points. And if you aggregate it, you realize the amount of saving is enormous. So that's such an increase in the safety and the speed in which we are able to move. We are promoting walkability. For the very first time, pedestrians do not have to move the same way that car moves. We are basically able to move within the cells in such a way that we're not experiencing the traffic. Massive improvement in construction time. We are able to construct in a cellular way which saves enormous amount of time regardless of the type of technology that we're constructing. Of course, we want to see more and more modularity and more sustainable material, but even if we're using conventional construction, this is a lot faster. Massive improvements in energy, both cooling and heating, simply because of the orientation of the sun and the shape of these 2 low points oriented in the direction of average sun path and 2 high points that are corresponding to the latitude that we are on the planet. Massive improvement of flood risks. We have a lot more soil in our environment. We have a lot more vegetation in our environment, which is able to capture those waters. Massive improvements on noise. Now we invited birds Now we have trees in the center of each community. So, we heard this multiple times today. We are going to double the built environment somewhere in the next 30 to 40 years. We're not just going to double the built environment, we're also going to double the land coverage of cities somewhere in the next 20 to 30 years. And this is the reason. I live in Manhattan, and I see those intersections every day. We all spend hours in traffic in the last couple of days. So when you look at this inefficiency and you realize if we're going to double the land coverage of cities in our lifetime, we might as well not build like this anymore and build differently. I decided to dedicate my life to the improvements of how we live. And geometry can do that. We can increase inclusivity. We can increase equality simply by changing the shape of how we organize ourselves. But this is a kind of organization that makes us realize that we're all together in this. Building community, meaning building communities together. And then I wonder why we haven't done this until now. But then I also realize it took us 1,500 years to put wheels on luggages. We, in fact, sent a person to the moon before we put wheels on luggages. So I can assure you that once we're going to demonstrate that kind of city, we are not going to be carrying our luggages with no wheels anymore. So after 5 years, we put an amazing group of individuals together that is helping us to create a new discipline. Bioplanning is a new urban planning discipline that is going to change the way we're planning cities. We are going to debut our first book in the next few months. We also secured some academic organizations that are going to support us in furthering this research and teach it to the next generation of urban planners and architects. We are also able to secure our very first project on 700 acres of land outside of Tulum, which is all going to be built based on bioplanning approach and our modular construction. So for the first time, people do not need to choose between living in high density or living in nature. But we just started. If we are going to double the built environment, we have a lot more to do. So this is a paradigm shift. We are going to deploy $320 trillion over the next 20 years for the future of the built environment. In the next 40 years, $950 trillion. So this is a massive ambition. This is a massive opportunity, in fact. What we are building today is a platform and a marketplace that is going to allow us to capture all of those projects around the world and ensure that they're going to be done in such a way that they're created differently for the future of ecological harmony for all of those who are going to live in those places. So, tomorrow, we are able to build environments that looks very different than the type of cities that we're creating today if we just listen to how nature creates. My time is up, but I'll leave you with this thought. I saw a pattern in nature. 5 years later and millions of dollars after, I'm standing on this stage, not just to share with you a pattern, but also an incredible financial opportunity. I look forward to speaking to most of you later on. Thank you very much.